Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, welcome. It's noon and we know how busy you all are. So we always begin right on time. So again, we're thankful for you being here and spending your time with us today. I'm going to enable the waiting room to allow everyone to join, and we have already begun recording. This is our marketing disclaimer. By being involved in this platform, you are authorizing permission for this to be videotaped and uploaded to our website and to use in marketing materials. Additionally, no reproduction or use of this video may be made without prior written consent. Thank you so much for being here this morning for our program, Landscape Project Planning Timelines. The team from Terra-Scape has a great presentation in store for you today. So again, thank you for being here to learn. We would love to see where everyone is joining in from, and if you're a board member or CAM. So if you would be so kind and put that into the chat now, we'd love to see where you're joining us from.
Say that there, I'm sorry.
Speaking of chat, if you have any questions during the presentation, I ask that you please have them ready to go, but to wait until the end of the presentation to put them into the chat. And as always, again, we ask that everyone mutes themselves. Additionally, I will send in chat an email address where you can schedule a consultation for your association with Terra-Scape. It is now my honor to introduce Terra-Scape's owner. Please meet George. George was born in Louisiana and moved to the New Smyrna Beach area when he was only 6 months old. He created Terra-Scape in 2007 with a mission to build a world-class organization by creating a culture that fosters growth for landscape professionals, stimulates innovation, and as a result, delivers exceptional landscape services. Their vision is to be recognized by their clients, their team members, and experts in their industry as the best landscaping company in the market. Please welcome George Kennedy with Terra-Scape.
Thank you, Diane. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm going to share my screen so we can go ahead and get started. We're going to spend the next few minutes outlining some of the steps and most important factors when considering a landscape project. Okay, how to get a cohesive plan. The first thing that you want to do is determine what you want from the project. How will it be used? Is it a functional improvement, or is it an aesthetic improvement, or is it a combination of both? What elements would you like to incorporate into the project? That could be seating areas, could be areas for pets, barbecue areas, etc. Here's an often overlooked item that really should be looked at, and that's problem areas. Are there trash or dumpster storage areas that need to be addressed? Boat or trailer storage areas, areas with security or privacy concerns, areas with adaptability concerns, areas with too much sun, shade, or wind, or areas with standing water. The next step would be to gather photos from local sources and places on the internet like Pinterest or Houzz and save them in a central location. You also want to consider how to work internally. Is there a landscape committee? Is there board involvement? And if so, to what degree? How involved will the property manager be during this process? At Terra-Scape, we have a project planning checklist that we use. It is geared a little bit more toward the residential market, but if anyone is interested, please send me an email and I will make sure that you get a copy. How to stage a project. So the first thing that I would do is identify your goals and start with the end in mind. The next step is put a plan in place. For small projects, this could be a simple design on notebook paper, but for a larger project or a project that's going to have a significant impact on the property, I suggest that you engage a landscape designer or a landscape architect. Once a plan is in place, then you can proceed in stages according to budget if needed. The next step is seek input on the plan from select members of the association. I strongly recommend that you do not put the plan out for the entire association to make decisions on. Otherwise, it's likely that no decision will get made. But Identify a select committee. If not, if you don't already have a landscape committee, identify a select group of people that can help work through that process and narrow it down. It's also a good idea at this phase to work with the landscape designer and trust their instincts. Key element here is do not rush through this portion of the process. It's best if you can identify any potential issues in the design phase so they can easily be corrected with minimal expense, because it is much more expensive down the road if you don't catch them in the design phase. Next step is identify a contractor that can do the work. I'm not going to say a lot about this because property managers do a very good job at this step of the process. But the one thing that I will mention is that there is a benefit to utilizing the same design firm to do your installation. So for example, if a designer selects a particular plant for a particular area and that plant doesn't survive through the warranty period, is that the designer's fault or is that the contractor's fault? So if your design firm and your contractor firm are the same, ultimately they're going to be responsible if something doesn't work. So that's one of the reasons why you want to consider using the same firm for both. After the design is complete and the installation begins, you want to make sure that you stay engaged in the installation process. Set guidelines with the contractor to make sure that the completion date stays on track, but also be flexible to a point in understanding that materials, weather, and labor are all factors that play a part. For a large project that spans multiple weeks, I recommend setting up a weekly walkthrough with the foreman to go through the progress and identify any potential deficiencies. How often should properties plan to replace plants in beds? For a property that is professionally maintained, including irrigation, fertilization, and pest control, involuntary plant replacements should be minimal. That is, plants that die without a reason. But from an aesthetic standpoint, we recommend surveying the property every 5 years to review your existing landscape and determine what no longer seems to be working. This review timeframe actually benefits the association more because problem areas can be identified and corrected without having to do a large-scale renovation. Here are some other considerations. Weather and environmental conditions. If you are in an oceanfront condominium and you're planting on the east side of your property, your environmental conditions are going to be very different than if you're planting on the west side of the county, as an example. The type of ground cover that's used. This can be both functional as well as aesthetic. Do you want to use standard pine bark mulch or chocolate mulch? Do you want to use pine straw or washed shell or river rock or crushed coquina? There's pluses and minuses for each of these ground covers, and they should all be factored in when you're making your decisions. What outdoor elements, if any, will be included? Are there going to be new seating areas? Are there going to be areas for pets or barbecue grills, etc.? And this gets overlooked quite a bit. Are there going to be drainage or irrigation issues? And I will tell you, yes. 100% of the time in the last 20 years that we've done a landscape installation, we have had at least a minor irrigation change. That is also true in about 60% of the cases with drainage. So 60% of the projects, the landscape projects that we've done in the last 20 years have had a drainage, some sort of a drainage issue, not always a big drainage issue, but something that needs to be addressed. And 100% of the time, again, with respect to the irrigation. Okay, next, how often should I trim my palm trees, shrubs, etc.? So, sable palms are the largest percentage of palms on most properties in Florida. They should be trimmed 1 time per year in late July or early August after seed pods have matured. Washingtonia palms, which are the really tall palms on most of the properties that you see around here, Those need to be trimmed at least once per year, but they do grow so fast that trimming them twice per year will not affect them in a negative way. Specialty palms like date palms or sylvesters can be trimmed one time per year. Ornamental palms like robelinis, Christmas palms, and foxtail palms should be trimmed as needed during regular service visits. We strongly recommend that you follow the University of Florida guidelines for palm trimming, which is that you do not trim anything below perpendicular to the ground. Additionally, the benefit of trimming your palms once per year, as some of us may have witnessed recently with the two hurricanes that came through, is that palms that are not trimmed will often release that debris during periods of high winds like hurricanes, which can damage your own property, but also the property of your neighbors. So that's definitely something that you want to be cognizant of. Shrubs and ornamentals should be trimmed consistently throughout the year. In an instance where they are overgrown, a rejuvenation cut should be done in late winter or early spring. How often should I remulch flower beds? Mulch should be installed annually in all plant beds at a depth of 2 to 3 inches. What is the best time of year to install new plants? Any time is satisfactory in Florida. However, in the months of January and February, I suggest keeping an eye on weather patterns to ensure that they are favorable for new plant installations. If not, I would push it to the last full moon in February before you install anything. That's if we're having a cold winter, basically. What is the best time of year to install sod? Avoid the months of January and February. Watering schedule at the sod farms tend to be pretty consistent throughout the year, regardless of weather. And as a result, with the winter winds, the sod will usually not end up looking good when it gets to you coming from a sod farm in these months. Additionally, our experience has been that a percentage of that sod can also develop a fungus because of the time of year that it is. Here's a few tips for communicating to board members and residents. Provide advance notice of work. When you're doing a project, a landscape project, there's always going to be dirt, debris that's on the property. There's going to be contractors likely parking in the parking spaces. There's possibly going to be debris containers. There's going to be materials. All of these things on a short-term basis negatively impact the residents of your association. If they're made aware of the fact that this project is going to be happening and how it's going to impact them in the short term, it's going to be much easier to sell it to them, and a number of complaints that you receive are going to be much less. Explain the benefits. Obviously the aesthetic benefits become pretty clear pretty quick, but there may be other benefits if you're adding items to your landscape, like if you're adding a walking path, or if you're adding a seating area, or if you're adding a new barbecue grill. Those types of things are all beneficial for all of the residents of the community, and it's important to make them aware of that. And then finally, let the professionals make plant choices. We've been doing this a very long time. We understand the right plants for the right place and the right conditions. I realize that a lot of people move here from other areas of the country and the world, and they have ideas about how they like plants and what they would like to see. We've tested and tried many of these different things in our landscape over the years, much of it with resounding failure. So we've learned from the mistakes that we've made in the past, and our goal as professionals is to make sure that your investment is sound and that it lasts for a long time. At this point, I will open it up for any questions.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I have a question for you. Right now, I know a lot of landscapers are busy just coming out of this storm and everything, but how far out are you scheduling right now for consultations?
For consultations, we only book 2 to 3 weeks out. For for projects, like beginning projects with us, we're roughly 4 to 8 weeks out.
Okay. And then once you meet with someone, how long does the planning phase usually take? And then from the approval of the planning phase, because we know sometimes that can be based upon board meetings and things like that. Is that where you fall in that 6 to 8 weeks out?
That's typically 6 to 8 weeks from approval. That's just based on our workload. So the planning process can take anywhere from, if it's a small project, anywhere from a week or two to a larger project. We've seen it take upwards of 3 months for the planning phase. I don't want to discourage anyone, but you know, there's back and forth between designers and residents and HOA boards. So, you know, that's atypical normally. We like to do a lot of background work before we come to you with a plan to make sure that we've put all of our best efforts in place to address the concerns and the needs of the association before we actually start putting pen to paper with a design. So usually when we come to you with the first draft, we've gotten it pretty close.
Okay, so that's after good communication between parties. And then I think a question that a lot of CAMs have when it comes to landscape companies that we would use for projects and our regular maintenance. How do you all work your contract? Are you full service? Do you do the lawn maintenance, the irrigation, and the pest control? Do you sub that out? How does that work with you all?
We do commercial grounds maintenance. We do irrigation. We do outsource our pest control and our tree service. But both of the companies that we outsource those to, we've been working with in excess of 10 years. And they do all of our properties. So we have no issues with being accountable. So the idea behind our approach is, as a property manager or as an association, we want you to know that you only have to make one phone call if there's an issue on your property.
Okay, great. I know that that's a big, it's a lot of finger pointing if it's not all under one umbrella.
And that's why we designed it that way.
George, I had a question about the markets that you cover, the counties that you cover. Can you talk about that, please?
We work primarily in Volusia County, but I would be happy to discuss anybody that's not in Volusia County. I'd be happy to have a discussion with them about what their specific needs are.
Great. Anybody else? We've got the professional here with us, so now is the time to ask all those burning questions.
I'll jump in and ask one more because I think in our conversations, this is something that you told me about, and I think it's pretty cool that you all are doing this. Will you tell everyone a little bit about, I know you guys are moving to battery powered on a lot of your mowers and things like that, or you've started. Can you kind of give some information on that?
Absolutely. We've always been environmentally focused. We realize as landscape professionals, we are stewards of the earth, and we try to tread as lightly as possible when we can. So 15 years ago when we started, we were the first company in Florida and one of the only companies to convert our entire mower fleet to propane because electric was not available at that time. All of our existing mowers, except for the new electric mowers, all operate still on propane. So we don't use any gasoline in any of our lawn mowers at all. 2 years ago, we made our first investment into an electric lawnmower. Now we have 2, and in the next 3 to 5 years, our mower fleet is going to be completely electric. We're still waiting for the handheld power equipment world to catch up with the battery technology. We do have handheld power equipment in trials right now with some of our crews, but we haven't completely converted to electric yet. But that is a goal sometime within the next 10 years based on how quickly the technology can catch up to our needs.
Okay, any other questions? I'm going to be sending to everyone in the chat George's email, even though it's been up there on the screen. You can just cut and paste what I send you. Also, their website, so you can learn more about their services, and a link to give them a review for putting on this free education today. I'm going to open it up one more time for any other questions to ask George Kennedy with Terra-Scape. Everyone's really quiet today. Okay, without any more questions, thank you all so much for joining. George, thank you for all the information. And
My pleasure.
please follow up with George directly.